All right, welcome back to our show. We just got off the phone with Rob Lapham. We were talking about what has happened and what's happened to our country in the last 50 years, and we were talking about the where I was and where he was when Martin Luther King was assassinated April 4th, and 50 years ago. And I've got Brian Armstead on here, and he can talk a little bit more about this better than I can. Good morning, Brian. How are we doing today, sir?
I'm doing fine, James. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, sir. I was just thinking about when you wrote yesterday telling me about what you were going to talk about. I was sitting there going, where was I 50 years ago? And I remembered I was just leaving a Harlem Globetrotters game with my father at Barton Coliseum in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I was 12 years old. And I remember it like it was yesterday. And I bet you can probably remember it if you're old enough where you were when that happened. 50
well,
years
James, I'm old enough. I'm 58, and I got to tell you, man. I watched a lot of the coverage yesterday, and I broke down, man. It seems like yesterday that this all happened, and the impact that Dr. King had on this nation. A lot of people don't remember. A lot of people don't, especially young folks. And I was pleased to see so many young people out yesterday in marches and in commemorations of the infamous anniversary.
Right.
But my concern as we move forward is that the 50th anniversary is one where you kind of shoot your load, for lack of a better term. I mean, it's the big anniversary in a marriage or any kind of when you commemorate Pearl Harbor or anything. The 50 is the big thing. So where do we go from here? Where does our nation go from here? For me, things have changed in a lot of ways. But when I look around and I see a lot of the things that are taking place, a lot of things still haven't changed. But I wanted to touch on, so to answer your question, 50 years ago, we got the news, we saw some coverage on black and white television. And then I looked out on my sister's bedroom window and I could see a glow in the sky. I couldn't see the actual fires because of the recreation center that separated my housing project from Gay Street, which was the black economic corridor in Baltimore. It was a flame. And a couple of days later, when it was safe to go out, when the gunshots and the fires and the looting had stopped, Baltimore was a mess. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget some of the stories that my mom told me about working at Woolworths at the Reed's drugstore at the food counter, and having to serve whites, but she couldn't serve her own people.
Correct.
And just marching at War Memorial Plaza in Baltimore for different causes, for the Civil War that was taking place in Africa at the time, in Biafra, and for causes, and listening to Jesse Jackson when he spoke at our church. Just a lot of things went through my mind yesterday. And it had me flash back a little bit to a tour that I took. I've actually taken two now with Toyota. We talked about the first one on the show about a year or so ago when I went up to New York and visited the estate of Madam C.J. Walker, and we visited the National Museum of African American History and Culture in D.C., which was an incredible museum. But this time the stakes were a little bit higher, James, as went to the Deep South this time. And I knew that the stakes would be higher, and I knew that it was going to be a very emotional trip for me. Because we were going to drive 2018 Toyotas from historical sites in Atlanta to Selma, Alabama, Montgomery, Alabama, Meridian, Mississippi, and finally Jackson, Mississippi, to witness the inauguration of another very powerful display of our history, the Mississippi Civil Rights Museum. Now in Atlanta, we took a bus tour, and the Atlanta portion was okay because it was good, but we really couldn't get that hands-on feel because we were on a bus and we were listening to one guy talk about a lot of different things.
Right.
But we saw the Martin Luther King national site where an eternal flame burns in his memory and in the memory of his wife, Coretta Scott King, another powerful civil rights icon, who's no longer with us. We saw the Ebenezer Baptist Church where he often preached. We saw his statue on the grounds of the Georgia State Capitol building. And we learned a lot about his role with the NAACP and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and many other good things in Atlanta. But the stakes in Atlanta were not quite as high as the stakes when we got in that car and we rolled up to Montgomery, Alabama.
Right.
You know, the city, the state that had a terrible legacy of denying civil rights to anybody who wasn't white.
And George
African Americans.
And George Wallace was the governor at that time too.
George Wallace was the governor, blocking doors to schools.
Yep.
Bull Connor was the commissioner of public safety, and I say that in quotes, ordering police to attack peaceful protesters
with dogs,
high-pressure fire hoses, police dogs,
yep,
while protecting Ku Klux Klansmen and others who sought to espouse white supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
The Freedom Riders bus, the Greyhound bus that was bombed, came to my mind.
Mm-hmm.
The 16th Street Baptist Church, where the 4 little girls were killed on a Sunday morning, came to mind. Dr. King, James, once called Birmingham a symbol of hardcore resistance to integration. And all of this just came to mind as we drove into the city in swirled up clouds of emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Then we went to see Dr. King's house, and it's the Dexter Parsonage Museum, which is the museum about the church where he preached for many years, the Dexter Avenue Baptist
mm-hmm.
Church. But going to his house, there was a woman who was our tour director, Dr. Sheila Cherry, who was really, she was by Dr. King's side daily for years, and she spoke so passionately and eloquently about his life and his work. And visiting his home, we were on the front porch about to go in. It's a national historic, on the National Historic Register now. It's a protected, site. And she noticed that we should look at the 2 different windows on the porch, the one on the left and the one on the right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the one on the right was totally different because it had been bombed. His house had been bombed several times, and it was a constant target for hate,
mm-hmm.
All matters of hate
right.
while he lived in that home. But then she showed us a dining room table where Dr. King and his family died, and she asked me, of the 10 people in the room, she asked me to sit at the head of the table. And then she informed us that that was the table where the vaunted Southern Christian Leadership Council, the SCLC, was formed. And, I felt like I was in a front seat of history. The SCLC,
you are.
The NAACP, they played such large roles in everything that the Civil Rights Movement was about. People think that the Civil Rights Movement was just Dr. King.
No.
There were Jewish priests, I forgot what the head of the church, the synagogue is in Judaism, but there were many Jews who helped. There were whites who died.
Yes.
There were many white priests who went to jail. There were people from all walks of life around the world who espoused this peaceful protest that were on board with Dr. King and the movement. It's just the Deep South was so rooted in this hatred that they couldn't see past. And, across the U.S., not just in the Deep South, but mostly.
Mm-hmm.
But to sit at that table and know that 50-plus years ago, men sacrificed so much to sit down and try to form this SCLC to make a difference in the lives of not just African Americans, but people.
Yes, being from Little Rock, that was a pretty, 1957, I was just a child, but I remember growing up with the racial division and Jim Crow laws and black water fountains and white water fountains, and I couldn't understand that at that age. And then, but when this happened, I was 12 years old. My mother, my father, we were all part of the protest to change the laws the way they were, because Little Rock had protests in favor of changing. We couldn't continue to do what we were doing because we realized it was wrong. And Little Rock didn't have the riots, because we were worried at first when it happened we were going to have riots, not like Baltimore. But being from the Deep South down here, I see where we've changed. We've gotten better, and in other ways we've gotten worse. But I want to see us get better. I do.
Well, I don't want to go to the end of the story so quickly, but when it was all over, James, I realized that Mississippi and Alabama are facing their legacy head on.
Yep.
I'm going to fast forward. I could talk for an hour about this, but I know we only
got about 3 more minutes. So yeah.
3 minutes, yeah. So I want to go to the Mississippi Museum of the Mississippi Civil Rights Museum.
Right.
Well, first of all, very quickly, I walked across the Edmund Pettus Bridge where Bloody Sunday took place.
Mm-hmm.
And to walk across that bridge was a powerfully emotional moment for me, because I imagine those marchers who crossed that bridge and were attacked by police dogs and by the police on that Bloody Sunday. Sunday. But to go to Meridian, Mississippi, to Jackson, Mississippi, and to be there for the grand opening of the Civil Rights Museum on December 9th, 2017, and to see Myrlie Evers there in person, and to know that the president had just given a passionate speech about civil rights prior to the museum's opening, and to tour the museum, and to see the rifle on display that killed Medgar Evers, and to see walls, wall after wall after wall after wall, about 12 feet high, with the names of black men who had been lynched during from the late 1800s to the 1960s. The names of these men and the years and where they died, and this is just Mississippi. And to see the display of the muddy graveyard of Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner, three civil rights activists who white and one black who were shot, tortured, and buried in a mud pile in Mississippi. It was all just an extremely powerful and emotional moment. So I just want to thank Toyota. I want to thank Precise, the agency, the multicultural agency that Toyota has, one of their agencies that's based in Atlanta, and Alexis Davis Smith, who's the head of that agency. But for Toyota, who's really reached out to the community, they're committed to making an economic presence here in the U.S., but also a social presence. They write checks for a lot of different things, including the African American History Museum in D.C., where they gave several $1 million, and then also this new Mississippi Civil Rights Museum. Driving the cars was terrific. They make some awesome cars, but they also are embedded in the fabric of this nation. They have plants here. They hire Americans to build their cars. So just a big shout out to, it was a trip that I wish I didn't have to take, but having taken it makes me a better person because I can then, tell my story. I can print my story, and people who may not have known the story can read it and say, hey, here's somebody I know who went through this whole process, who's doing okay today. Now, we still have to deal with the vestiges of racism. It's just part of being black or part of not being white in this country. Now, I get that.
Yeah.
It's probably never going to change, but it is better.
I think so.
And as long as people don't forget, it's like the Jewish people never forget the Holocaust, but that makes them stronger as a people. Don't forget your history, good or bad, or you're doomed to repeat that history.
I could not say that any better. Do not forget history, because you're doomed to repeat it if you do.
Yeah.
I think that is
James,
so
thanks
true.
for the opportunity to talk about this today. I know we only got about 20 seconds left. It was, thank you, Toyota. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about this today, and we'll be back next week. I'll be in California. I'm going to try to make it happen some kind of way, but we'll talk next week about another car. I'll be on the Toyota trip next week.
Sounds great. We look forward to hearing from you, and thank you so much for calling today on the 50th anniversary. We appreciate that so much. Talk to you later. I'll talk to you next week now. Bye-bye now.